Well, Arwa Damon is a founder of INARA, an international network for aid, relief and assistance. She joins us now live from Istanbul. Good to have you with us. So first of all, Arwa, take us through the broad range of threat to life facing Gazan children right now, from airstrikes on their homes to dangerous treks across the Gaza Strip from place to place.
Well, you have what you mentioned right there, and of course, what was just highlighted in that report. There's the physical danger coming from the bombs, the gunshots to children, but then there's also the very real fact that illnesses that normally would not kill children are at risk of doing so under the conditions that children are now being forced to live in Gaza, in these overcrowded, unsanitary shelters. Something like a kid having diarrhea, normally that's not deadly, but it can be if that diarrhea is not properly treated and if that child ends up being dehydrated. Plus, and anyone with a kid can probably relate to this, you know, a kid with diarrhea has accidents. You need to be able to clean off that child. You need to be able to have a clean diaper to put them in. That obviously doesn't exist in Gaza. You have skin diseases like scabies and lice that are just spreading. You have acute pulmonary infections like the common cold, of course not deadly, but it can become deadly. You have cases of pneumonia and bronchitis that are rising. You have, for example, the growing risk of hypothermia. What happens when children are as malnourished as the children in Gaza are now today, given that the vast majority of families barely subside on one meal a day, is that hypothermia can begin to set in at much warmer temperatures. And then, of course, on top of all of this, you have the various different mental traumas that are happening to children on a more than daily basis.
So from the rate of killing children, which is now in 2 months greater than 2 years of conflict in Ukraine, to the wide range of things you just mentioned, hypothermia, diarrhea, you've got to ask, has this killing rate of children, does it have any parallel that you've seen?
No, and look, I was a correspondent with CNN for 20 years. I've been covering war for 20 years. I have not seen this. I have not even seen anything that is comparable to this. It's not just about the intensity of the bombardment in such a small space. It's also about the fact that I've never been to a war zone where families, once they manage to survive the bombardment, are somehow unable to flee the actual danger zone. I've never been to a space where humanitarian aid is ready. It's ready to move in. It's ready to be deployed. The supplies are there, but there is absolutely no way to access the civilian population that is so desperately in need. This is unprecedented. It's not even just, you know, myself. Journalists and aid workers who have been in this space for well over my own 20 years have also said that they've never seen anything quite like this. And there's no formula for how to deal with this.
Well, in addition to the threat to life, for those kids who do manage to survive the bombing, the lack of food, the spread of disease, what sort of long-term treatment, rehabilitative work do some of these kids need who just survive?
Look, it's going to be very extensive. Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta, who is one of my charity INARA's founding members, was in Gaza for 6 weeks. And from what he saw on the ground, volunteering as a reconstructive surgeon, the vast majority of injuries that he saw among children are going to need years and years of surgery, plus all sorts of different kinds of physical therapy and life adjustments. Then you need to think about the mental toll that all of this is taking. One needs to bear in mind that even before October 7th, back in 2022, Save the Children did a report where they surveyed the children of Gaza, and they found that 80% of children in Gaza suffered from depression, anxiety, and fear. Add to all that trauma and the trauma of the wars past, what children are going through right now. You have the trauma of the fear that happens every single time there's an explosion, every single time a gunshot crackles. And this happens more than once per day. You have the fear of whatever it is that caused the injury, if the child is injured and in pain. You have fear, because fear is what is created when a child turns to their parent and their parent cannot ease their pain and cannot ease their own fear. All of these are different kinds of traumas that are continuously bombarding a child's psyche on a daily level. This is going to have to be extremely aggressively, cautiously, and carefully addressed at whatever point in time it is that my organization and others are going to be able to begin to address this compounded, multi-layered trauma amongst children. When this sort of trauma goes unaddressed, it calcifies within a person, so to speak, and that person becomes incapable, that child becomes incapable of functioning. This level of daily fear and daily trauma is enough to cause an adult to mentally snap. It is going to have a severe and devastating impact on children.
Thank you for sharing your perspective and experience on this.